This is our Emergency Operations Center, or our EOC. An emergency operation has to operate 24/7, as disasters can happen at any time. Therefore, having a multi-hazard ZOP will be an effective approach to manage our Emergency Operations Center. This is Tamara, one of our on-duty operators.
Hi, everybody.
What is 24/7?
It means our center has to operate 24 hours per day and 7 days per week, basically every day the whole year. We have to be able to inform the community and our stakeholders at any time if there is an emergency.
Let's sit around the meeting table.
Tamara, why don't you join us here?
This Emergency Operations Center looks very sophisticated and advanced. I'm not sure we can afford to have this in our community.
You are right, Azam. To manage and maintain an EOC, you need resources, capacity, and capability. Since we are the local disaster management office and we have to provide support and services to many communities, including your Nami village, we need to have this facility. It would be good if each community has an EOC, but it doesn't have to be this sophisticated. The most important thing is to have the EOC functions. What I mean by that is there are dedicated people, there are plans and procedures, which is the EOP, there is the minimum required infrastructure and equipment, such as communication equipment and electricity, and there are logistics and reserves that can be used and mobilized during an emergency.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean, ma'am.
Greg, maybe you want to elaborate on this.
In your community, you already have groups where some community members have been appointed to volunteer and be responsible for the good of the community, right? Such as the Community Security and Safety Group, the Community Health and Welfare Group, the Community Social and Environment Group, and the Community Youth Group. Different communities have different arrangements, but most of the time, functions already exist. You could utilize and mobilize these groups for your Emergency Operations Center. You can add their roles and responsibilities so that when there is an emergency, you can activate them to support the community as part of the EOC. As for the infrastructure and equipment, you don't need to have a special EOC like this one in your village. You can have a room in the community hall as your base. Then, use the community hall as your operations center when the members are activated due to an emergency. The most important services you need are communications and electricity. This is to make sure you can continue to communicate with the community, with us, as well as with the other stakeholders.
If I may add, you don't need to have someone working 24/7 in the community hall, but you do need to make sure there are designated persons who can be reached or contacted and activated at any time if there is an emergency and get to the community hall as quickly as possible.
An emergency response plan is developed based on a potential emergency scenario, which refers to your hazard and risk assessment. Understanding what can happen will enable you to determine the resources needed and develop plans and procedures to prepare should a disaster strike. As for supplies, as you would already know, if there was an incident, for example, a tsunami, the first responder is the community. Help from the outside might take some time to reach you. Of course, as your local disaster management office, we would do our best to be with you as quickly as possible. But there will be many obstacles during a disaster. So it would be good if you would manage to support your own community, maybe for the first 3 to 24 hours. Therefore, you might want to store some supplies, such as first aid items, water and dry meals, blankets, cooking facilities. We have a suggested list of supplies you may need that we can share with you.
Okay, I understand now. It would be good if we can utilize and mobilize our community members to support each other during emergency. I'm sure we can convince and work with our community members to have an additional role during an emergency.
Azam, one of the key things to be able to manage the function of an EOC is to have the capacity and capability to do the work. So once you agree with your community members, we would be happy to provide the training for them. As a matter of fact, maybe Adam and Aziza and one or two more can do some kind of on-the-job training in our EOC for 3 to 4 days. We could also go to Nami Village to do a couple of training sessions there to make sure you have the capacity to manage emergency response operations during a tsunami.
Wow, that's great! Yes, ma'am. I would like to do the on-the-job training here.
This is great. Thank you, ma'am. We now have a plan to work on the EOP and the capacity training for the EOC. I think we can now move forward.
Not so fast, Azam. To work on the EOP and training on the EOC, you also need to decide on your tsunami early warning communications. How are you going to receive the information and disseminate the information to the community, as this will be part of your EOP? So I suggest before we work on the EOP, we talk to our colleagues in the National Tsunami Warning Center. I will talk to Mr. Subrata to arrange for a meeting. Greg or Tamara could join your team when you meet with them.
I would be happy to join them, ma'am.
Ma'am, your next guest has arrived and is waiting in your office.
Okay then, why don't you discuss with Greg and Tamara about the next steps, starting with the meeting at the National Tsunami Warning Center. I will arrange your visit with Mr. Subrata for you. I have to go now. It's always a pleasure meeting with all of you. Nami Village is very lucky to have champions such as you.
Thank you, ma'am. We couldn't do this without your support and guidance. Okay then, Greg and Tamara, we'll see each other again sometime next week at the National Tsunami Warning Center. Please let us know 2 days before the confirmed date and time so we can arrange our travel to the city again.
Sure.
We walked back to the bus station to go back to Nami Village. We smiled at each other. We now have plans for the emergency operation plan and a plan to build their capacity to manage emergency response operations.